Hello, welcome to Two Birds, One Mic. Today we're talking about emotions, hence the Frank Ocean.
Mm.
How you doing, G-Man?
I it's funny, I feel like whenever we have a conversation, it's something that stays on my mind, and then when I talk to other people, it just weirdly coincidentally also comes up. So I was talking to my doctor friend who's a psychiatrist, and emotions came up there too, and we were just talking before we get into that though. I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm focusing on my attention, my emotions. I'm trying to, be better about actually feeling my feelings. So how about you? How are you?
Hey, well, that's fantastic work. As a man, that's incredibly difficult. I'm doing well, man. It's been a good 2 weeks. Well, hold on. Oh fuck. That's my Invisalign there. It's been a good 2 weeks, man. I haven't worked. I've pretty much been on like a little vacation. Obviously, visited you in DC. That was fucking incredible. I feel like just put my mental state exactly where it needed to be. And I just been trying to feel vibes and vibe
Mm.
feelings, as of late.
Yeah. How is it not working after how long? You were probably working, grinding through those multiple jobs for at least a few months, right?
Yeah, probably like I mean, since probably like October-ish, something like that. Honestly, no, it was super nice, man. I really just realized that like there seems to be a direct correlation between working all the time and mental health. And I just feel so much better being able to just relax.
Mm.
Yeah, I 10 out of 10 would recommend use your fucking vacation time, use
Take
your
a
sick
break.
time. It's
Yeah.
extremely necessary. How's your day of doing nothing been?
Phenomenal, actually.
Really?
Like, just, yeah, I just hung out with myself. I actually just talked to like six people. Each conversation was like an hour long.
Wow.
I have just been talking all day, cleaning my room. Um, Felt really good, actually. Yeah, I did
Mm.
nothing, like truly nothing. I got groceries and I cleaned up my room and I laid in bed and watched basketball and I talked to people and then I feel
Fuck yeah.
like I feel my health improving and yeah, I guess yeah, being able to, before I didn't want to, there's so much I have to talk to you and share with you today. So I want to wait before I get to all of that. But I wanted to start. So I know you wanted to share a lot about emotion. So where did this come from? Where was the kind of what is the drive behind this week's conversation?
Drive. Yeah, so um I've been doing therapy lately
Hmm.
and it's been incredible. My therapist is fire. Shout out Giselle. Ski.
Shout out
Um,
G.
Big G. And she's really good because I feel like as myself, and I know you can relate to this 100%. When I talk about myself, my feelings, my thoughts, all that stuff, um, I like so I always had this conception growing up that I was really good with emotions, and it's because I could just take them apart, look at every little piece of them, understand all the nuances and the complexities of them, not only within myself, but with the people around me as well. And so I was always like, I'm an emotional expert, like 100%. And then what I realized through therapy is that I actually avoid my emotions through intellectualizing them. And
Hmm.
to look at your emotions in a way where you think about them as things outside of yourself and analyze them in such a way is not to actually feel your emotions. And so
Hmm.
that just kind of blew my mind because I was like, shit, are you telling me like I'm not good with my emotions? Like, what do you mean? And then we kind of went down the path, my therapist and I, of really helping me feel my emotions. And essentially, as a man, the journey with my emotions has been tricky as it is with most men. And I like imagine so many men have gone a decade without crying and really feeling much. And it's insane because that's not an uncommon thing. You have men who have gone 20, 30 years without crying a single tear. And that is fucking crazy. Like that is so insane. Like we go our whole lives not utilizing one of our core emotions that was meant to help us deal and cope with the pains of life all the time. Like crying feels incredible. And I really had a breakthrough in my emotions with my therapist one day after as everyone probably knows on this podcast already, I've gone through a breakup and I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that. And so it's been things aligned so perfectly though, because I started seeing this therapist right around the time that my breakup happened. So it was the perfect ground for me to really deal with my emotions because I had so
Mm.
much, or I have so much. And I remember one day, I woke up just feeling some type of way. I didn't have identifications for it. And so I met with my therapist, and she really, really just showed me how much I run away from my feelings. We started talking about things that were, she asked me, "How are you feeling?" I was like, "Oh, I don't really know. I guess I feel sad." She's like, "But like, what does that feel like? Like, what are you feeling in your
Damn.
body?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I guess I feel a little heavy. I feel some heaviness that I've been feeling all day." And she's like, "Okay, and what else is there? Like, where in your body do you feel it?" And I was like, "It feels like my lower chest, my stomach kind of." And we just started going deeper and deeper and deeper. She started asking me more questions. She called out that I started stonewalling. I started kind of bracing myself so that, and I started masking my emotions in that moment. And she was
Hmm.
like, "You don't have to mask. Like, what are you feeling?" And in that moment, it fucking clicked. It majorly clicked. It's not the case that men no longer have emotions after years and years and years, whatever, or that guys don't have feelings, obviously. But what happens is we get so good at identifying when it comes up and then suppressing it in that moment that it just becomes unconscious. And so what I realized that I have been doing for years and years and years and years, it's not that I haven't been feeling my emotions, it's that I've become an expert at suppressing that hit when my emotion comes. And she was just like, "Don't suppress it, like let it go." And I felt fucking naked. I felt like I was out, just suspended in midair, and she could just see everything that I was trying to hide. And it was one of the most
Mm.
terrifying feelings ever. And she brought up a really good point, which I'm kind of somebody who identifies as someone who tries to dive into their fears and, go head on and try and grow and whatever. And she was like, you call yourself this kind of person, yet you've been running away from your emotions your whole life. Like maybe this terrifies you more than anything. And I was like, whoa. And so in that moment, I cried in front of her. And we really did some work on essentially when that feeling comes up, that hit, that impulse, you don't suppress it. You just feel everything. And from that
Hmm.
point on, I've been crying like a little bitch every single day. It's been fucking amazing. Maybe not
Yeah.
every day. I cry all the time though now. It's crazy.
Mm. And so when you say suppressing emotions, are those all emotions, the entire sphere of it? So your happiness, or do you feel that you suppress some emotions more than others?
Personally, I think I probably suppress a lot of my emotions, but the emotion of any emotion that leads to vulnerability and uh, potentially expression of emotion that show things like sadness or tears probably get suppressed more than others. And eventually, what happens, and we know this through emotional psychology, is that if you suppress your emotions, you also suppress the internal feeling of them as well. And through simultaneously expressing emotions, you then increase the internally felt feelings of those
You might
feelings.
have to explain that a little bit. For me, those two sound the exact same.
Right. So there's a difference between emotional expression and an emotional experience. So one can have concordance or similarities between the way they express things, so smile, sad, happy, whatever, and then what they feel on the inside, which can relate to
Okay.
that. But more often than not, there's a discordance between those two. They're off. And so what happens a lot of times is they're linked. So if you express something, it will increase your chances of feeling it. And if you suppress something, it will increase your chances of not feeling it.
Oh,
And so through
interesting.
constantly
Okay.
suppressing our expression and suppressing our internally felt feelings of the sadness, we end up being in a space where we kind of shut that emotion out.
Wow. I think you said something that was really beautiful. I feel like, from going to therapy myself, the way I've thought about emotion is simply just identifying it. Like when I do feel something, it's like, all right, what do you feel? But you brought up some really good questions of like asking questions such as, where do I feel it? What are some other questions like that? Because that's one I've never asked myself.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's really hard to do by yourself. Um, similar to that kind of analogy of it's hard for a fish to understand that it's in water. You know, you need
Mm.
something outside of it to really be like, you're in water. And so it's really hard to do when your coping mechanism for dealing with your emotions has been to intellectualize them your whole life. But like you said, I think, you know, therapy is probably a really, really good way to go about it. But obviously to kind of develop the tools on your own, I think it's a lot of watching because your mind is so clever. It's so clever. And it will do so many things to hide and cover up the ways in which you're suppressing and the ways in which you're running away from your issues. And so I think it's watching the ways in which you do that. I think, yeah, asking yourself these questions of how do I feel, right? Where do I feel it? And what does the feeling feel like? So, for example, in my last therapy session,
Say that
you
third
know,
question. I'm writing it down. Say the third one you just said.
fuck, I don't have a memory.
You said, sorry. You said, okay, well, how do I feel? Where do I feel it?
And like, what is the feeling like what is
Okay.
like, you can ask yourself like setting questions. Like for me, in my last session, I was there and we were talking about this breakup that I'm going through. And we talked a lot about loneliness, and she asked me a lot of questions about my current views on relationships and my self-worth. And it was weird because essentially I ended up telling her, I was like, you know, I know I'm worthy of love. You know, I know that I am someone who can, you know, deal with these things that I'm dealing with. Like I'm aware of all these things. Um, and I'm aware that I simultaneously like miss my old partner, but I also know that that's kind of just a part of life. And so there seems to be this disconnect. And she asked me this question. You know, we were talking about who I was as a kid, and who I was as a kid was somebody who was very lonely all the time.
Mm.
Um, I just constantly felt alone. I constantly felt rejected. I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough. And she was like, well, look, you have this Mylan now who's older. He knows that he's loved. He has all these friends who validate him and tell him that he is everything that, you know, he believes he is. You know, he feels secure and confident. But kid Mylan didn't feel that way.
Mm.
And so you got to ask yourself, when you're missing your partner, who is it that's feeling that? Is that adult Mylan or is it kid Mylan? Is it the Mylan
Mm.
that's being reinforced, the kid Mylan who's just being reinforced that message that he wasn't good enough and stuff like that? And so, you know, I started reacting. I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. And when she asked me, she was like, how do you feel? And this was the craziest part. I was like, I feel really cold right now. And she was like, and wouldn't somebody who's isolated feel cold? And I was like, shit, damn. Like, that's crazy. Like, my body was giving me the feeling of being cold, and I cannot think of an
Mm.
emotion that is more, or a feeling, a temperature that's more correlated with aloneness than coldness. And it was
Mm.
just, it was so real. And it really just, in these moments, made me realize how intelligent our body is. There's that quote by Nietzsche that says, there's more wisdom in your body than your deepest philosophy. And I just feel like that is so true. And that's really where our emotions tend to operate. I feel like is in our bodies, but just, I think as men, we're just so good at just acting like they don't exist. So yeah, I don't know. How is your journey with your emotions, man?
I'm really trying to separate because I can't even really picture what feeling a feeling looks like. Like, I think, you know, as I get older, I'm better at noticing them. So let's say, you know, for example, the example from this weekend where the date that I took to the policy prom, you know, kind of made me feel a type of way. And I was able to acknowledge that I felt that way. And I let her know, hey, this is how it makes me feel. But no part of that did I like really sit with that feeling and go, oh, and I wrote this question down as you were talking, like another question to where do I feel it? Maybe like what does a feeling look like? Maybe giving it a color or shape or a
Right.
being or, you know, like kind of trying to, I just, yeah, I guess really just sitting in feelings. I think I try to, when I feel happy, I try to shut it down because I'm like, all right, don't feel happy because eventually that's going to go
Sure.
away. But if I
Exactly.
feel really shitty, I'm like, let's distract yourself with something else. So it's like, I don't actually ever feel anything. I just like exist and like think
Exactly.
like I just like think about things, but I don't feel things, right? And it's like there's really something to say about that's like pretty much most of your existence. You know, like most of what it comes down to your life is just what did you feel? Did you feel the things, right? Did you feel
Mm.
love to the fullest extent? Did you feel sadness and jealousy and you know, happiness? And there's this idea, and you know, I really think about that song. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, right? It's
Mm.
like there's something to be said about how children are taught about these emotions, because it's like all the ones in that, if you're happy and you know it, and then if you're like excited, it's like they from a young age you're taught to kind of characterize emotions into good emotions and bad emotions. And I'm really curious to like how and why that happens, as opposed to like we value happiness at such a high level, like it's like this like amazing feeling, and when I retire I'm just going to be happy for the rest of my life. Like this whole it's a really interesting conception that people have of this like definition of happy. But it's like when you equalize all those emotions, and happiness is the same as being excited, it's the same as jealousy, and it's just they're just different feelings. I think the stress of like I need to feel a certain type of way can sometimes be taken away, which and then you just live with them, you just experience them. So that's something I'm personally trying to do myself, instead of like being like, oh, I feel bad, try to make it go away fast, right? There's this beautiful quote I really tell myself when I'm suffering. It's like I'm going to paraphrase it, but what I took from it is the point is not to remove your suffering, it's to not make your suffering worse. And I think that's beautiful, because it's like, okay, let's say I'm heartbroken, or, I'm broke, I'm losing a lot of money. It's like sitting with that feeling of like, okay, this is how I feel. You're just existing. But it's like being like, I don't want to feel that anymore. How can I get rid of that feeling? Now, all of a sudden you're put into a place where you like are in a compulsory state of action just to get out of a certain feeling, which I think is where I can sometimes add to my pain. And so,
Right.
Learning some of these questions and things that you've talked about, I think are helpful things for me, myself, to kind of tell myself when I'm in those places where I'm like, all right, where is that feeling? But maybe am I, even through that, is it kind of trying to intellectualize feeling? Asking all those questions?
I think in some ways it is. I think if you get too focused in the questions, like of like, let me break down every
Yeah.
aspect of what it means to actually feel something. Like, I think it requires a lot of like putting the mind away and like trying to get into the heart, whatever that means. But for me, it really is just like I mean, they operate obviously on the same stuff, like, but they're different as well. So like, let's get a little vulnerable here. All right. So first thing I want to ask you is, when you were talking about, the situation with the girl from the policy prom, who shall not be named, in that moment, you kind of spoke about your feelings and stuff like that. But I know as well as that a lot of times when we speak about our feelings, it's like there's a thick wall in between our feelings and what we're saying. And so what do you think, like, in that moment?
Hey, I don't even want to know where the rest of this question's going, bro. Sorry, what were you saying?
In that moment, why do you think it is when you're saying that it's not in a way that it's like felt? Why do you think it's just kind of in a way that's intellectualized? Like what do you think it would have been like for you to be there and actually like speak from the heart rather than the mind? Like, why do you think that is something that we avoid all the time?
Two things. Before I responded to that exactly, I wrote this down, and I think in connection to that, I feel like in the question of like, where do I feel things? I just realized I have an entire body. I can actually feel things in my legs and feel things in my hands and fingertips, and all my feelings kind of just get stored in my chest. I feel like anytime I feel some sort of feeling, it's in my chest. So in connection to your question, I feel like I can't even really answer that because I don't feel them. Like, it's all so centralized and so it's like so is your question, repeat your question again. Is it more like, why did I not do that, or is it more like, if I was to feel that right now, what would I have felt?
All right, so let's talk about the situation, right? Because there's two ways you could have gone about that, right? There's a way in which you've gone about it. You say, actually, maybe this is a bit too real. Let's talk about another example, right?
No, it's okay. I mean, we can do it.
All right, let's do whatever. No one probably listens to this shit anyway. And all right, so you're going up to her, and obviously you're feeling some type of way about her communication.
Yeah.
And obviously that was triggering things for you that you had already felt in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two ways you could have gone about that, right? Like, you could have gone about that and you're like, hey, these are all the ways in which this bothers me. Bothers me because of this, and that connects like that. And that's really just how I feel, this. And you're just You know, it's like
Yeah.
you're reading off a script almost.
Yeah.
And then there's a way you could have gone about that where you're just like deep eye contact, really just feeding there, and you're like, dude, like I like really got messed up by someone doing this in the past, and like I'm feeling the same way right now. And it's like this way where you could have just like really just been like, this hurts, like
Yeah,
this is painful, like what I'm like what I'm experiencing right now. But why do you think when you went about it, it was kind of in that more just like,
yeah, 100%.
speaking about your feelings as if they are entities that exist outside of you type
Outside
of
of
way?
you. Damn, that's crazy. That's a great point. Sheesh. I guess I don't even know how to do it the other way. You know, more like than it being a choice. I was like, oh, I mean, even in this conversation, I mean, to me from where I was earlier, which was I would have not just ignored my feelings and been like, I don't feel those things.
Huh.
To even be able to address them and be like, hey, this is how this makes me feel, and intellectualize the whole process. That in itself is like a step forward in terms of like being in touch with my emotions. But yeah, the next step would actually be, is it possible to even talk about it or share it without, I guess, being intellectual about it? What do you think about that? Is it how would I go about telling you how I feel without kind of like putting it into context and, you know?
Well, I like, again, even in that moment, I feel like it gets a bit intellectualized. Like I feel like it's not about bringing up anything. It's about letting things go. Is kind of what I feel like. You're not like there's nothing to add. Like you're just trying to remove. Like you already can feel. Like it's not like you don't have it. You have it. But what you have is a mechanism that's been so good at suppressing it and not paying attention to it that it's just automatic. And so the goal is you're not trying to add anything. You're not trying to add your emotion there. It's already there. You're just trying to remove the barrier that causes you from suppressing it all the time. And what that barrier is for me in my experience is, you know, we're talking about the situations, and she's just really good. She like noticed like a demeanor shift, and I was like, and she's like, how are you feeling? And I'm just like, and in that moment I have like a choice. I'm like, all right, I could either just like, I feel fine. Like, why do you ask? Or I could just be like, fuck, like just, you know, whatever it is that is coming up, just let it come up. And so I think it's a choice, really enough. Like, I think it's a choice. Like when you talk about something that really is hard for you or something that really does bring up those emotions, it's a choice that ultimately saves you from getting hurt, I believe. So the question I was like, in that situation, had you gone about that in a way in which you would have spoken more from the heart than from the mind, I believe the fear is that you'll get hurt. You'll look vulnerable. You'll look like a bitch. You'll look like air signs, by the way, if this is just audio. And you're scared of looking weak, you know, as if our emotions make us weak. That's kind of like what the common belief is. And for me, like that vulnerability is like, I feel seen in a way I just don't really feel seen ever. And it's
That's
terrifying.
a good point. Yeah, and I guess like the fear is that when you're in that place of vulnerability, like someone can really poke at you. But
you're everything's down. Your guard, everything is down. You're like, dude, this is it. Like I'm put all my weapons down, my shields, my walls, my protectors. This is my weakness. Like I'm telling you where it hurts, and I'm hoping that you don't stab it.
And so maybe wow, yeah. What I'm trying to intellectualize it again, but I'm trying to think that, is it possible to be so confident that even with all your vulnerabilities down, if someone was to poke it, you wouldn't be hurt? You think that's possible?
Maybe. Maybe. I think maybe there's a way of, I think maybe the goal though isn't to like avoid being hurt. Like I think the goal is to like understand that like you'll be okay regardless. Like I think it kind of defeats the purpose to speak about something that's so tender and raw in a way that gives it a protective shell. To speak about emotions and you putting your guard down, I think it's just understand that even if someone does poking you in that way, like you'll be okay. But I don't think it's so much about about being like, can I like, you know, can it not hurt me? Maybe it can. I think, but I think even if you're going into it with that mindset, like you're already in the I need to protect
defensive
myself mindset. Yeah, it's already a defensive question. Like, okay, is there a way to do that so I don't get hurt? Like, how do I just not get hurt?
So then the real technique is to learn how to deal with these sad, hurt feelings and how to like, I guess, feel them and also kind of channel them into something, right? Like,
they're extremely painful and uncomfortable. And that's really what I was like realizing in this session. Um, I was realizing that, I really do just minimize all my emotions as a way to deal with things in a way that helps. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It one thing we talked about in the session as well too. This one was fire because we've been talking a lot about isolation and loneliness.
cool question. Are you touching your mic by any chance?
I'm not.
Okay, cool. Sometimes it like shakes a lot and like you can
Oh,
hear it,
maybe
but
it's my
other times,
table.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, okay,
continue.
okay.
Sorry. Continue.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about because you and I have been talking about isolation and loneliness and kind of how much that affects relationships, and I think plays a lot into this role of emotions and avoiding them. Um, and one thing I got from the session too that was honestly really fire is we are talking about like kind of how sometimes you can be alone but not really feel alone. Or, I was telling you, I was like, well, I don't really feel like I have a problem with being alone. Like I don't feel lonely a lot of the times.
Mm,
Um, and it's a little different. And one thing that she brought up to me is kind of how, um, so there's this concept in psychology and attachment theory of secure attachment. And essentially what secure attachment is the kid will kind of roam freely, but they always kind of look back to see if their mom's there. And as long as they know their mom's there, they're good. Like they'll just go out and kind of do whatever. And so kind of one thing that she really helped me realize about dealing with this breakup or just dealing with loss in general is that it's different. It's totally different because when you look back and you know that that person is there, you can kind of go out and do your thing. You can be free. You can be alone. But she was like, it's not true loneliness until you look back and there's no one behind you.
no one there.
And that is actual isolation. That is actual loneliness. And that's where the like pain actually comes from. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, for me, I was telling her like, if I can have two different types of days. If I have a day where I know I'm like hanging out with a friend later, I can like spend the entire day by myself and I don't feel any type of way because like I know that's happening. But if I just know I'm spending the entire day by myself and not talking to anybody, that is like a terrifying type of feeling. And for me, that kind of really highlights that difference between like true isolation and loneliness and like the loneliness and kind of having that island that you can always return to. And that is when I feel like I actually really feel my like aloneness.
It's beautifully put. I think traveling does that, right? Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a new country and I guess in a weird way, it's like as long as you have your phone, are you ever truly alone then? Do we ever really feel that? We
But
always
even
have
then, it's like you're coming back home. So that's the security. Like if you
yeah.
just traveled and you had nowhere you're returning to, that's a different kind of traveling.
Yeah.
Like you're just there. There's no
Yeah.
like looking back. Like
So I
you're
guess I've
just
like
there.
never felt that form of lonely. I've never been that alone ever. Yeah, I've
I mean,
always
I
been
think it's in different contexts. So, obviously when you had your breakup, I'm sure that was in a way you were looking back and you no longer had that secure attachment.
yeah. I'm just trying to think if yeah, I didn't have it from that specific individual, but
Exactly.
I
But
did
like,
still have it from many
right.
other
Somebody
people in my
was there.
life. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's still like that person was really like that anchor, that island, that like you really were
Mm,
like using. Cause of course it's like, I'm sure even in attachment theory, the mom can leave and, the kid can still have like their uncle or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's like, it's not going to hit the same as knowing it's like, that's mom's back there.
Mm. So this week, would you say the two big themes on your mind have been emotions and isolation?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say a lot of, I think one of the hardest parts of dealing with any kind of breakup or any kind of loss at all is the confrontation with how alone you are
Yeah.
in this world, in life, existentially, everything. And that's where I think so much of the emotional turbulence comes from. And so it's this hard thing between how do I feel all the good that was with my relationship in this person and simultaneously not have all that good be a constant reminder of the fact that I no longer have that. And I am now alone in this way because I no longer have that stimulus. And so so what you end up doing a lot of times, because those emotions are so hard to deal with, you end up diminishing the beauty of what the relationship was or what the
Mm.
situation was. You end up diminishing them so that you don't have to feel them fully.
Damn.
And
Yeah.
that becomes a coping mechanism for dealing with your emotions, or at least suppressing your emotions. But what that does is it robs you of all the beauty and all the good of whatever that thing was that is now bringing you pain. And so to fully feel your emotions is to fully experience life.
Mm.
Because no matter whether it's good, no matter whether it's bad, moving forward, you're not going to diminish that experience. You're not going to rip out all the good parts so that you don't have to feel the bad. And the more
Damn.
comfortable you become okay with feeling it on a day-to-day basis and not
Then
running
things are
away
just
from it,
things.
and you just appreciate it all. You're
Sheesh.
just
That's
like,
crazy.
wow, this is so like, this is incredible. Like, how lucky am I to be crying about this right now? Like,
Wow.
that's amazing.
I mean, I think really like multiple times, like learn to. I wrote this multiple times already. Learn to channel your negative feelings. Like I think being comfortable in that space, right? And I think that's the same thing with being alone. It's like kind of like something to be trained, right? The more you do it, the more it just becomes like, oh, I'm comfortable in this space, and that's the same thing with feeling sad, and which is not to say like become so comfortable in it that you become attached to it. I think some people are like, I
Absolutely.
like feeling sad, so I'm gonna feel like that all the time.
Right. Right.
So I guess not being attached to a certain emotion, but still being able to feel it. I guess
Mm-hmm.
wow, yeah, geez. Emotions are crazy.
They're very crazy. And it's like, they're so important. There's one
Yeah.
story I really like about one of the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy. I think it was Aaron Beck. Um, he created a therapy called rational emotive behavioral therapy. And so this therapy was all about dealing with thoughts, essentially, or that's what people thought. It was originally called rational behavioral therapy. And what the message became, or what the message people took from it, was that emotions were pointless. You don't have to deal with your emotions, you just deal with the thoughts. And he was like, yo, you you cannot just deal with thoughts. Like,
Hmm.
it's two sides of the coin, essentially. And so he literally, just so that people understand how fundamental emotions are for healing and being a human and having this experience of life, he changed the name to rational emotive behavioral therapy. And I feel like as humans, and maybe even as we move towards this more like technological, machine oriented, algorithmic type of society, it seems like the role of emotions are becoming more and more diminished. And it's kind of this thing that's
Hmm.
portrayed a lot of media too. You always see like the genius, like emotions are weakness. Like that's kind of what's played upon so often. But I really, really am realizing as I get deeper and deeper into it, it is true. Like, people say it's what makes you human, but I'm actually really, really understanding that fully. And I feel like I've been trying to be not human, weirdly enough, for the longest time, because I thought it would somehow be a superpower. But I'm realizing emotions, in a lot of ways, are your weakness, or they're not your weakness, they're your vulnerability. And those are two very, very different things. But in your vulnerability, that actually becomes it really becomes your strength, because you're not running away from anything. You're there. There's nothing to run away from. When you're running away from your
Hmm.
emotions, how could you actually be that strong? There's a whole
Sheesh.
part of you that you're not in
Say
touch
that
with.
again. Damn. Yeah, that's a damn. Let's put that on a t-shirt. You said if you're always running away from your emotion, yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
because
that's something that we talk a lot about, and this is something that has really been on my mind. I want to be as purposeful in everything I do. I don't want to do something out of compulsion or some sort of need that if I don't do it, I'm not going to feel a certain type of way. And what I'm
mm-hmm.
thinking now is even this need to feel a certain range of emotions, such as happiness and whatever that is. I mean, it's so interesting how like there's a whole philosophy between like the words that we use versus feelings, like how that connection is actually built. I think
Mm-hmm.
is a phenomenal part of education.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, Before I get back to that point, like I was gonna say, I was reading this book right now, and it actually it's cool because now I'm learning a lot of connections between education and psychology. A lot of the research that's
Mm.
done in the education space is done through the lens of psychology. And
Right.
the guy that I'm reading right now, Howard Gardner,
Hmm.
He's talking about how the importance of emotion in curriculum building is not really there. So people typically are like, oh, let's study the brain. What parts of the brain are associated with what types of learning? Oh, okay, this is how we can approach it. Or they're focused more on like behavioral, like, okay, how are students acting? How are their grades? So on and so forth. But not enough of it is about like, are people passionate? Are people in love with what they do? It's not
Mm.
very like emotion focused. So he was just saying that that needs to start being introduced into curriculum, just like actually measuring things based on emotion. But
Mm.
coming back to what I was saying earlier, which is like doing things with a sense of intent. I feel like trying to run away from things that might make me sad or things that might make me feel vulnerable or afraid is in a way making me compulsively act only in one direction, right? Like, all right,
Mm.
this I believe that this action will give me this. And I think the real problem with that is that inevitably things in your life will happen that make you feel afraid, that make you feel sad, that makes you really have to confront some of these feelings you don't want to. And in those times, you can't run away. You just have to deal with it, right? It's like, I'm sick right now, and it's like, I would love to not be, but it's like that's just something you have to confront. And in confronting that, it's no longer something you're afraid of. And it just becomes this feeling that you're like comfortable with. You're like, I've actually explored the depths of sadness,
Hmm.
and I really have felt it and then understood it. And it's like, now I'm over here. So now I know what exists in that realm of feelings, you know?
Absolutely. And like what I'm really learning fully, we talk a lot about taking these feelings and creating with them. What I have learned about myself as of recently is that because I have run away from my emotions for so long, it actually inhibits my creativity pretty strongly. And it's because to run away from your feelings, to run away from anything, is to run away from understanding yourself. That's what a lot of this creativity is, right? It's taking yourself and then
Mm,
turning it into some medium that ultimately is not the self, but a reflection of the self. And
mm,
so, but what I've learned is like, sometimes I hear poets or whoever talk about things in such a way where I'm like, whoa, how did you know that about yourself? How did you understand that about yourself? And what I realized is it's from not running away from these things. In your sadness, in the depths of your sadness, you learn so much about yourself. Why are you feeling
sheesh.
sad? When have you felt this before? How did this originate? Where is this? There's so much subconsciously hidden in all these emotions that we're terrified to dive into them. But each time you do dive into
Mm,
them, you discover parts of yourself that you never knew were there. And that is with
damn.
everything. I
And that's
realized
maybe what people are afraid of.
I think so 100%. Even with happiness, right? Like it's so hard to dive into happiness because, like you said, it's going to be taken away. But that's a reflection of my fear of everything from me being taken away. My
Mm,
life, everyone I love, the things around me. It's a reflection of the finite nature of life in itself. And so for me, it's like to dive into that emotion fully is to understand about myself that I have a fear of good things being taken away from me. Where did that come from? And then you can go
mm,
deeper and deeper and deeper in that. And so poetry, these creative mediums are really incredible because they allow you to truly dive into these dark places that we've just been running away from. But the more you dive into it, you're able to just have this super deep exploration of the self that I don't even think you can do with pure intellectualization. I think it
mm.
requires the emotion because I think the emotions are like these like, giant hidden black boxes. And it's like once you dive into it, there's just a whole world that you just have not discovered. Like for me, it's even these last couple of therapy sessions, like have really been discovering that. Um,
Wow, this is making me want to excited to just. I'm excited to feel
I
sad.
feel
I wanted to
prom
say
is sad
something you
movie.
thought that's really been making me think. Like coming back to the prom date situation, you
Mm,
asked earlier, what do you think it is that makes you want to intellectualize it? And I'm thinking now, the fear is not actually being vulnerable to her, but being vulnerable with myself. Like
mm,
actually seeing I don't know who I really am. Like I feel like by being vulnerable with yourself, you kind of become connected with all these past versions of yourself that I've been trying to avoid and run away from for so much of my life. And so being vulnerable in a weird way is like holding all of those younger Gautam's hands and being like, "Hey, What happened? Are you
Whoa.
okay? And it's like
Whoa.
that part is what scares me. And it has nothing to
That's
do with
giving me
what this
chills.
person can do. Yeah, like it has nothing to
That's
do with,
fucking
yeah, you like
real.
that metaphor?
That was fire. That was dummy fire. Metaphor,
Like
man.
like it has nothing to do with what she can do, because at the end of the day, like, all the hurt and things you carry with hurt yourself way more than any other human being can ever tap, you know?
Mm.
Like the 24 years of pain that other people have put on me is way more than what this one person can ever do
Mm.
to me today. You know, it's like those are all things that I'm carrying with me. And by like sitting with your emotions, you not only sit with your emotions today, in a weird way, you kind of sit with that emotion you've felt in all of the situations ever in your life.
That's so fucking real, dude. Wow. Like, and that, damn, that hits just so hard because it really makes me think about this situation, with my breakup, right? And what I realized is that to hold the hand of, so the current Mylan now who's going through this, if he fully experiences the pain of this loss, he also simultaneously is holding the hand of the Mylan who lost his dad when he was 12 years old,
Mm.
the Mylan whose mom essentially abandoned him and, in a lot of ways made him raise himself and wasn't there emotionally or it's the same Mylan who had friends leave him and family members leave him who he didn't want to leave him. It's to hold the hand of all of these, and the weight of that hand is incredibly heavy. And it's so hard because I think what you realize is that at some point in time you partitioned yourself. You partition that super vulnerable younger self and this older, equipped, defense ready, battle ready self. And
Mm.
to hold the hand of that younger self is to, like you said, look at all the shit that you left behind, all those feelings, all the pain that they had that you didn't really deal with. You just kind of were like, all right, I'm gonna cut you off here. Like, you stay here and like I'm kind of going
Mm.
forward. And it's to really feel all that shit that person felt. And so, when my therapist asked me, like, yeah, is it younger you or is it current you that feels that pain? It's really younger me. It's that abandoned kid. And I didn't help him. I just left him and was like, I'm good now. Like, I don't have those problems because the problems left. So I was like, I don't have to deal with them anymore. But it's like the pain is still there.
Wow. So our conversation of emotions has led to, what is that word that people psychologists use? It's like childhood.
Oh,
It's like a
like heal your
fancy.
inner child.
Yeah, inner child. Heal your inner child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, dude, that really got me on. I thought like I understood what that meant, and I really didn't until I had the session. I was just like, damn, is there some like abandoned hurt part of myself that I guess left in the dust? Like
Mm.
that's crazy. I'm still trying to figure out what it means to heal your inner child, but
Yeah.
I
That
feel
yeah,
like that's
exactly.
kind of the
That's the
next journey.
next. Yeah. That is the next journey. Like, what does that mean? And I guess so much of it has to do with memory, which is why I find it difficult, because it's like I don't remember,
Same.
you know? But it exists. It obviously happened and it obviously left its impact, but it's hard to like be like, oh, I remember this exactly. And I think that's where the use case of journaling and video journals, I think
Mm-hmm.
can play a really big role, because it's like I can pinpoint, okay, these things happened, you know, and I think that would be really helpful now,
Mm.
to be able to look back and be like, oh, okay, I do remember these things. But I guess also part of that is probably just an excuse. If I really sat there and thought, I could probably remember a good amount of stuff. Like, I really
Right,
think
right.
if I really sat there and was like, all right, 2014, what happened? I can
For
probably
sure.
remember a decent amount of things.
And I feel like it really like us not remembering things is not, some of it is just because literally our brain was like, we're not using this anymore. But I think a lot of it is because our brain wanted to protect this. And I
Mm.
wonder, in diving in these emotions and diving into these spaces and connecting with that Gautam that was hurt, how much of the past can you actually uncover? I've had
Mm.
moments when I feel like I'm in a deep peace where I have memories really get unearthed. I've had moments when I
Oh.
was meditating and the sound or smell of a really traumatic moment will just kind of pop into my senses. I've had moments where I'm like in a deep, 20, 30-minute meditation and I can like hear the sounds of like my mom screaming when she was getting abused. And it like startles me. And I had a moment very recent where I was hiking and I just had this like really, really random memory pop up of like a field trip I took in like fifth grade that I completely forgot existed. and it just popped up for like no reason. I was just like,
Where'd y'all go?
what
Where'd
the
y'all go?
fuck? It was at like the like LA museum of like natural history or something like that. I
That's a
can't remember the
lit trip.
exact name, but there's a place that has that. I remember I just had this memory pop up of like me eating like lunch by myself, like on the
Mm.
grass. But I remember like the lunch. It was like a sandwich. Like I remember like the kids being by the tree, and I was kind of like by myself, like in this little area. It just popped up, and I completely forgot that existed. And I was like, oh shit. Um, and so I think a lot of times when you facilitate this, and maybe even start thinking about it, you can bring these memories up that have kind of left you, or at least gone deep, deep, deep to where you don't see them.
Yeah. Damn. And on this term of now connecting emotions to also just like the past, one thing I have trouble with, and we've talked about this before, is a sense of regret. Like there are a lot of memories that I really look back at and I'm like, I'm extremely disappointed in who that person was. And I would love to not be that person. And I'd love to, and in a weird way, I'd love to not take responsibility for those actions, you know? But I
Mm-hmm.
guess like there's like levels to it. So part of it is like taking responsibility. I think that's hard. I try to be I'm a new person. I'm different without really
Mm-hmm.
ever taking responsibility for the pain that I've caused and so on
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. So a part of that is stepping up and being like, look, those are things that I have done, you know?
Absolutely.
Um, and then through taking responsibility, there'll be a whole bunch of emotions that come up, you know?
Absolutely. No,
Um,
it's the truth too, right? Like it's crazy. Like it's crazy to think that your emotions can get you to a truth that just your like thinking couldn't. Like
yeah.
to feel the ways in which we've hurt people and the ways in which we've been shitty to other people in the past. It's like that's a truth that maybe you've intellectualized. Maybe you're like, yeah, I was a pretty shitty person, but like everybody kind of does things, blah, 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 blah. But it's like to really step into like, yo, like I hurt this person, like wow, like that, and like to really think about other people in a way as genuine humans, to where you're like they're literal people that I actually hurt. Like that's crazy. Um, that's the kind of
Yeah.
truth that I feel like is deeper than anything just the mind could take you to, or just thinking could take you to.
Damn. And I guess the difficult part is like, what do I do now? You know, it's like you can't really go back and like fix it with that specific individual a lot of the times. You know, like, well, what is in the past is left in the past, and so the way you kind of like amend those things is through your current conduct, which sometimes just doesn't feel enough. You know,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I
Well, yeah,
sometimes have
I
a
think
tough
you
time.
have to let the as best you can let the past inform the future. But I think also maybe not settling with the idea that we can't go back and right or wrong. So maybe that's something we tell ourselves because it's easier to not do that. Um, I realized I've told myself
Mm.
that in situations before, but I'm like, how hard did I really try to like mend that? Like, did I do everything I could? And a lot of times I think
I'd
it's
have
it's
to
easier
reach
to
out
not
to
have to
people I
face
haven't
that.
talked to in so long.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
That's what I'm saying.
that'd
No,
be
it's not
so
that we
like,
can't. It's just like it's just difficult. But it's like
yeah.
you also never know what that would do for somebody. But like I do have situations where I literally have tried everything and they just aren't down to talk to me. Like my ex before this last ex, like I was a fucking asshole to her. And I have tried. I've emailed her, I've called her, I've texted her. She just blocked me on everything. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
the only other thing I could do is like pull up to her house. That's clearly like an invasion of like, you know, and so
Yeah.
with that, it's like at that point in time, I feel like
It's a
there's also a lot
hell.
of peace when you do realize that you did do everything you could though. Cause I feel like that is the only time in which I found peace. I was like, I literally tried everything I could.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe that's what I'm gonna do this next week. Like really write down maybe a bunch of events that have happened that I regret and maybe just write down my past. Like pick a random year one day and be like, all right, I want to write all the things that I remember from that year. How did each one make me feel? Um,
Well, the
because
first step you got to get there before any of that shit is you got to feel.
yeah,
You got to feel.
yeah, yeah.
You got to have a situation, sit down, think about something that's hurting you, been on your mind. Something that is easily something that you just like, if you talk about it, you're gonna start feeling that
Mm,
feeling. And you sit there and you just and sometimes I think mediums are really helpful. So for me, I think what allows me to feel more than anything is music. Like if
mm,
I sing like an Adele song and I sing it at the top of my fucking lungs and I like think about whatever it is that I'm sad about, I'll start feeling everything. And so sometimes I think you kind of need things to help you to help get you there. Sometimes maybe it's a little state change like weed. Maybe it's music, but sometimes some kind of medium I think can be super helpful to get you there when you
mm.
haven't been there in a long time. meditation, whatever it is. But I think it's getting to that point in time, recognizing that moment in which your brain is like, ignore this, and then just be like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 we're gonna feel this bitch.
Feel that.
And because then you become more aware of it. It's like for me now, when I wake up and I feel heavy, I know I'm sad. I can recognize that is how sadness registers my body. I'm like, oh, I'm heavy. Like that's crazy. Like that is sadness for me. Like dope. And it's like then you move forward from there.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
instead of running away from it like I normally would, right? Then I'll just be like, okay, well, what's making me? That happened to me the other day. I was like driving. I was feeling really heavy. I was like, I just literally turned off my music and I was like, all right, like what the fuck's going on? And you just have a little, conversation with yourself. I feel like
It's giving me a lot to think about. I have a good
lots to feel
first.
about.
Oh no! Yeah, you're right. A lot to feel
Ah,
about. Yeah, I got
ah,
a dope first week of April coming up. Is it April or is
it's
it? It's
May.
May. It's
Yes.
May. Oh my God!
Ah,
Yeah, dope week
okay.
of May coming up.
Before we end this, I wanted to share
Yes.
with you the 12 rules of Gotham.
Oh no! Share the
Yes, to
poem
end
it
to end the
said.
podcast. What poem? Poem up on my Instagram. Son of the poet.
Hey.
Time. Yo, shout out to Gotham too for helping me edit that shit. Oh my god, having people just help you with your creative crafts is just like one of the most like when you take your pain or your feelings and you put them into this medium of sublime bliss and you're creating that. And to have someone else hop on that journey with you, it's a type of like intimacy that's like so unique. Like to
Mm.
help somebody get your, I'll put it in better words here. A lot of times what creativity is it's taking the mess, the undeciphered maze within you and translating it into something that can hopefully capture what's inside of you.
Mm.
And that is in a lot of ways what creativity is. That's what speaking is. That's what so many things are. And for somebody to help make that message inside of you externally clearer, I don't know. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's like you've now made me and the world able to see within me a little bit better.
I'm nice with the
Thank
clip
you for
fix.
that.
What can I say, bro? The clip
Hey,
fix, the amplifiers are nice, bro.
Even it's just intention. I feel like it's more than anything, you know. Like when
Yeah, no.
hey, Gotham's. If you need an editor, he's got you. He's top tier. He can be killing the game. Tutorial coming soon. Okay, all right.
All right.
To all people who are not listening to this, I recently hung out with Gautam in his place for a week and we slept in the same bed together. Gautam rolls around and talks. It was very crazy. But from this point in time, I learned a lot from Gautam and I feel like it changed my life. And so what I wrote was the 12 Rules for Life Gautam edition. And let me share. So what I learned, number one, and tell me if any of these don't really resonate. I don't know. Everyone around you, rule one, everyone around you is a real person and should be treated as such. An individual whom you can perceive outside of any role or mask as a real human being. Rule two, dance and sing everywhere you go, fully and wholeheartedly in front of anyone. No mind. Let nature be your theme song and live. Rule three, if you're not having a good time somewhere, it's because you're not doing everything you can to facilitate that. It's your responsibility fully. Rule four, be weird as possible. It's who you truly are and find people who love that. What you'll notice is that instead of people judging you how you believe they will, they'll mostly admire your courage and your freedom. Rule five, complete brutal honesty is your ally in any moment. With the girl you like, with the stranger passing you by on the stairs, with the super high up person at your job that everyone's afraid of. Be real. Make sure your values are known, but treat it with love. Rule six, life's absurdity makes it extremely funny. Nothing is as serious as you believe it. You getting in trouble, you getting laughed at, you getting put in awkward situations. View it all from a humorous standpoint rather than judging yourself about it. Rule seven, you will never feel alive if you never take risks. Take a risk every day. Push the boundaries of your comfortability. Rule eight, treat everyone around you as someone who could be a good friend with the opportunity to change your life. Don't let awkwardness or uncomfortability stop you from meeting somebody who can change the course of your life. Rule number nine, remember you'll die and most people around you you'll never see again. Don't overvalue their judgment and don't be afraid to look like a complete and total fool. Rule 10, whatever you're doing, make sure you love it fully and give it your all. Everything else is a waste. Rule 11, set your intentions as much as possible. When you wake up, before you enter a conversation, before you grocery shop, anything. That is simply the key to living an intentional life. And rule number 12, think like a data scientist. There's trends, calculations, predictions, and ways to improve everything. Zoom out and pay attention to what's going on around you. And that's 12 Rules by Galton.
Damn. That's like the nicest thing. Wow. Should I sit and feel that, or should I intellectualize it? Like, fuck,
let's sit
dude.
and feel it. Let's sit and feel it. Let's do a little thing right now.
Okay, let me
sit and feel it. How do you feel right now after hearing that?
I need to practice because I feel nothing, but I need to practice because it's like it's so touching. It's so touching. Like intellectually, I am so like. It means so much to me. Feeling wise, I'm just numb. But I need to practice. No, wow. Like, I'm so glad that you were able to. That means a lot to me because those are all things I really try to embody. Like each one, there wasn't a single one that was like that's corny. You know, like
right.
Those are all things that are extremely personal to me, and I really believe in all of those. And I feel like that just speaks volumes to our friendship and just like what. Like, you really see me for who I am. Like, none of those were, like, off at all. Like, even a bit. I was like, there can't be 12. I was like, there's no way there's going to be 12. I was like, there's going to be one that just, like, learn how to cook your tenders right. I was like, I'm waiting for one. But, wow, yeah, man. Yeah, let me sit with that. And try to feel something. Like, it's hard to really appreciate what you have until it's gone, you know?
Facts.
And it's like, oh, mine said it. If I was reading this page right now, if I listened to this conversation, if you had died, like, would I feel something right now? Like, hell yeah, you know. But it's like, it's that you were talking a great point about that earlier. Like, gratefulness is the ability to like imagine quickly what it would be like if someone was gone or if something was gone, and then put yourself back in that shoe. And have
it's also
really
maybe you're expecting to feel grateful. Maybe that's not the feeling. You know, maybe it's something else. Maybe you're setting the expectation of where your feeling is, and maybe the feeling is actually something different. So maybe I think there's steps. It's like what
don't expect
again the where is it, right? What's going on? The how does this feeling, and then maybe becoming better identifying those types of things. But also at the same time, it's context. We're on video and fucking on a thing. Like maybe you'll cut the camera and you'll feel it then, or maybe you'll feel it in 5 years. Who knows? But
yeah.
You also can't force it,
That's a great point. Not forcing it. You don't have to label it. You don't even need a word for it. You can just feel it. You don't need a name for it.
It's exactly because that's limiting in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it's like these are just random things. To put fucking 8 feelings to something. It's like
yeah,
a lot more than that.
Damn. Do you spit some fire today? Hey, all I gotta say is there was some heat coming out from your side.
Hey,
that therapist putting in work or what?
Hey, honestly, dude, yeah, it's like, and I feel like the best part is 9 times out of 10 with things in my life, I walk away and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? How do I implement this? But she's just been just like, dude, it's all good. You don't have to do anything with this. And I'm just like, shit. And
I think it's super important to note that you were having a tough time with her in the beginning. So it really shows that like you can, that process is not something that happens in 1 week.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely takes time. And she's great. But I'm glad I was actually able to spit some fire. I've been kind of on my like I don't have anything good to say ting lately, so I'm glad I was actually able to offer some maybe I'm the big emotions guy now. I don't know.
Big emotions guy. No,
but this was a good session. I fucking love you, Gautam. And Two Birds is coming back, baby.
Hey,
Season 3.
Two Birds returned. All right. Thank y'all for listening. The two of you, one of you, which is me and Mylan in the future. All right, see y'all later.